could we be about to see two matches between Ffion Davies and Adele Fornarino this summer? That's the question I, Ross, am asking on this edition of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. And the reason I'm asking it is because tonight, Thursday, we're going to see Fionn against Adele in the main event of the latest UFC Fight Pass Invitational show. And recently, Craig Jones has just announced at CJI 2, there's going to be a 4-woman tournament for $100,000, and he wants the best women grapplers out there to put themselves forward for the tournament. And I'm pretty sure in the comments I've already seen Adele put her hand up. So I think it'd be wise to base a tournament around Adele and Fionn. With Adele, we have the double gold ADCC champ from the most recent event. She won the lightest division, I think it's under 55 kilograms, and then won the absolute division as well. Terrific breakout performance from Adele. And then in Fionn, we have probably the grappler who's considered pound for pound the best women's grappler right now. I think that's fair. If you let me know in the comments your thoughts, that would be appreciated. But we have Fionn and Adele, I would say, at the top of the sport in the no-gi right now. Obviously, on the gi scene, we've seen Gabby Pisania on a total destructive tear, although very recently she lost a match to Tiare Porfirio, and it will be interesting to see what happens if they rematch at the upcoming World Championship. But keeping with the no-gi scene, I think Fionn and Adele are at the top of that just now, and making the tournament around them seems to me to be sensible. And then first, they have a match tonight, Thursday, and let's just talk about that very quickly. So I think it's going to come down to a battle between Fionn's top pressure game. I think Fionn would have the better takedowns. I would think it's likely that Adele's going to pull guard. Adele has a very dangerous guard. Fionn has very, very good passing pressure from top. I think that's going to be the battle of the match. I think for Adele to win, she probably has to submit Fionn from the bottom. I think Fionn can win on points from top and doesn't necessarily have to get the submission. So I'm going to lean towards Fionn. That said, Adele has been more active than Fionn in recent times. So will that come into the match? Could Adele perhaps be on better form, as it were? But I think Fionn's experience and top pressure and not having to submit to get the victory, to me, makes her the slight favourite. But you let me know. And then, yeah, if regardless of what happens in this match, I think they should rematch at CJI 2 as part of the tournament. And if you're wondering why CJI 2 is getting brought into this again, then yes, that is the biggest, most exciting competition happening this year. And I think a lot of what's happening in grappling has to be seen through that lens. So how do guys matching at one event affect what matches could happen at CJI 2? That's definitely going to be questions that are going to be asked as we preview the event. But we have Fionn against Adele. And then if they rematch again, that'd be 2 of the 4 women grapplers. Who else could possibly be in the tournament? Well, one person I would like to see considered is Ana Carolina Vieira, and she is also on this UFC Fight Pass Invitational event, matching up against Raquel. Ana Carolina had a great performance at the ADCC. I think where she won the under 65 division, beating Amanda Levy, Bia Mesquita, and then Helena Cravar on the way. So that's like 3 really, really good victories. Raquel Canuto, for her part, she's impressed at UFC FPI. I think she might be undefeated in that tournament setting. So that'll be an interesting match. You could say whoever wins this one should go through to the CJI 2 tournament. I think it's going to be a battle for top position between these two grapplers, and I'd have to give the edge towards Anna Carolina based on her experience, even although Raquel has been in good form recently. And then, yeah, if Anna Carolina wins, I think she should be the third person involved in the CJI 2 tournament. And then that would leave one slot open. Who could possibly take that slot? One name I'll throw out is, or I'll throw in, is Helena Cravar. Helena and Fionn could be on a collision course to meet at the Polaris Squads event on June 28, because Fionn is going to captain the Euro team. Helena is going to captain the US team. They could meet as part of that competition, and if they did, that would be an exciting, interesting matchup. I think, again, the match would focus on Fionn's top game, Helena's bottom game, even although we've seen Helena working her wrestling and top game a bit more, but even with that, quite often in matches, she still defaults to playing from her strongest position, which is being on her back, attacking legs. So those two grapplers could face. Again, if you throw Helena in the mix for that 4-person tournament, I think she'd be a good addition, because CJI 2, as well as having the top grapplers, we're looking for grapplers that carry excitement, carry hype, carry interest, and I think Helena is one of the most interesting women grapplers out there. Competes for one of the best teams in the world, one of the most renowned teams in the world, New Wave. Is it about to become branded as Kingsway, what with the opening of Gordon Ryan's new gym? But that crew, headed up by John Danaher, that's who Helena is part of. New Wave are going to be part of CGI 2, so Helena being involved, her team will be there. So I think she could be a good addition, but let's see what happens if Helena matches up against Fionn at the Polaris Squads event. And then who else could possibly be out there? Is there anyone I'm totally missing? Or do you think a 4-woman bracket comprised of Fionn, Adele, Anna Carolina and Helena would be a really interesting, exciting group to battle out for $100,000 at CJI 2. One person who might say, oh, I should be in ahead of Helena, could be Sarah Galvao, who beat Helena at the recent PANS event. So there are other names out there. You let me know. And then, again, if Raquel beats Anna Carolina at UFC FPI tonight, maybe she thinks she should be in the event. What other matches at UFC FPI are catching my interest? Well, I'd say there's one, and that's going to be William Tackett, friend of the pod. He's done an interview, if you dive into the archives, all about how he recommends you go about winning ADCC trials. And we're away to get back on that circuit again. The European trials, the first European trials date has already been announced, I think, for September. And then we're going to be building up to that event, the ADCC World's Finals in 2026. So go check out that podcast if you've not listened to it. I first met William when he came to do a seminar at SBG Aberdeen, where I train. And then he was gracious enough to give us some time to chat after it. And then he's up against Achilles Roca. So I think this is going to be like your exciting, fast-paced, scrappy battle. I'd favour William to take it based on his experience, based on his all-round game. But I think Achilles is going to come out with plenty of fire and make an exciting matchup. But other than that, the rest of the card doesn't really excite me too much, I have to say. I think those top 3 matches, William Tackett against Achilles Roca, Anna Carolina versus Raquel Canuto, and Adele Fornarino against Ffion Davies, are exciting and interesting, but the rest of the card doesn't really have much kind of like storyline and hype to matches that take place, even although they could be good battles within themselves. One match not taking place on the card is Mikey Musumeci against Gio Martinez. That was scrapped, I think, because of commitments that Mikey have to say, Mikey's involvement with the UFC FPI has been a bit of a disappointment to me. I think Mikey, at his peak, in his prime, was one of the top grapplers in the world at the lighter weights, obviously world champion level, but not really been in any interesting, exciting battles for me recently. Is that harsh? I think I'm right in saying my regular co-host on the pod, Callum, is away traveling just now, which is why you're getting solo pods from me. Other than two very recent interviews I did, which were very interesting. So shout out Taylor Pierman, who spoke to me off the back of a crazy CJI 2 European Trials event in London, and Bilal Echbari, who probably was kicked Dale's run at the Giles Trials in Australasia, which was used to find out the grapplers that were going to be on Lachlan Giles' team heading into CJI2 Team Australasia. Could have been the star of the show. But I think Bilal Echbari had a breakout performance, and he's gone from beginner to CJI2 participant in just 4 years, and I really wanted to learn how he's done it, what his story is. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of him, not just at CJI2, but in future events. He's definitely going to be one to watch for winning at Australasia, Oceania, whatever the term is for the trials down there. But that kind of, that trials, looking for the grappler from that region to go forward for the ADCC World Championships, I think Bilal has to be favourite right now for one of the heavier slots, the heaviest slot perhaps, at that trials event. So anyway, his story was super interesting. We spoke for almost an hour, and I think there's been loads of positive feedback to that chat online. So if you've not watched it yet, go check it out on the Jiu Jitsu Oracle YouTube channel. Anyway, slightly digressing. No Mikey Musumeci tonight. I think that's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see him being a lot more active, and I think Callum, my co-host, very much agrees, has said it before on previous Oracle pods. What else about this UFC FPI event is interesting? I'd say the rule set changes. They're following a format now. There's going to be much more like we saw at the original CJI. So I believe it's 3 5-minute rounds and a 10-point must scoring system in the matches, which you could say follows UFC MMA format. So it's like UFC MMA had their rule set. Craig Jones thought that would help MMA fans get more acquainted with Jiu-Jitsu. It would be a good rule set to have for Jiu-Jitsu competition. So he adapted that for the first CJI. And now, coming back to UFC Fight Pass Invitational, we have it, them now sort of thinking that what CJI did is a good way to structure grappling matches. I'm not sure. You let me know in the comments. Because at the recent WNO event, where we had, if memory serves me right, Nicky Ross against Kynan Duarte and Victor Hugo against Luke Griffith, in both those matches, which were over a longer format, could be 10 or 15 minutes, but in both those matches, we saw big turnarounds happen during the match, and those matches needed the time for those big turnarounds to happen. So the grappler that got off to the better start ultimately ended up losing. And I think we're still looking for the most optimal structure for having a grappling match, and there are still different ideas out there, and I think there are places for multiple ideas. If you are firmly in the camp of thinking one structure is better, one rule set is better. Let me know in the comments why you think that. But I think it's interesting that UFC FPI is going down this route, and certainly like CJI is becoming more and more influential in grappling. A lot of events are copying ideas that CJI has had. I've seen events creating their own kind of pit-like structures, maybe not a full pit with 4 sides, but three or 2 sides, and then having grapplers do battle in that. I think it's good. I think like a pit form, I think anything that can reduce stalling calls and guys spilling off the edge of mats, or as we saw in the CJI, well, I saw because it was Instagram live and I watched the stream, but for the rest of you, and I've seen plenty of comments asking where can people watch the European trials, there is, I believe, going to be a documentary style video of the event be put online at some point, so you'll get to see the scraps happen. But yeah, I think like format, they spilled onto sofas, onto hard floors. We've seen it ADCC trials events, like guys fighting on carpets. We've seen it ADCC itself, guys spilling into tables with monitors on them and stuff like that. So I think like formats that keep grapplers on the mats where the match is meant to be taking place without having to do loads of resets and setting them back in the middle. How that happens, I'm open to ideas, but the pit does seem to help. That said, it obviously adds a dimension if you can push someone onto the wall that isn't sort of the traditional battleground for a jiu-jitsu match, which would be on the floor itself, not a slanting wall. But yeah, UFC FPI mixing things up tonight. I think the rule set provides a talking point, but the main talking points in the event are going to center around the women's matches. And yeah, I'm throwing it out there. Will we see a rematch between Fionn and Adele at CJI 2? Because are they the best women grapplers to build a tournament around? And how do you think the main event between those two tonight is going to go? Jump into the comments and let me know. I'll be back with a quick recap of everything that happened at UFC FPI, and tune into the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. Subscribe to the channel, like it, tell your friends if you want more content that's going to be building up to the big CJI 2 event this summer.